Well, if that much rain was released, then that's probably correct. But we have an awful lot less rain required for the flood if the mountains are lower and the oceans aren't as deep, plus the oceans or the water coming out of the earth producing some of the water, which would not have the evaporation, latent heat of condensation problem. So I don't buy that. I don't think that's a problem at all. And it's certainly not science, as he said. You know, they can prove it got up to 6,000 degrees for Noah's flood. I would disagree. So plants and things like that growing on lava. The carrots they grow in Alaska that are bigger than baseball bats grow in pure lava and volcanic soil. They do great. And it can happen very rapidly. Surtsey is a classic example to discredit what he just said.
All right, thank you. This will be the last question directed to Dr. Holven, and then it'll be followed up by a question directed to Mr. Till. This question is directed to Dr. Holven. This person has put answer either or both, since it is the last question here, and they're both good. If the cubit used at the time of the ark's building cannot be accurately determined now, why does the Genesis author avoid clearly establishing the unit of measurement?
Why does the Genesis author avoid establishing? Well, a cubit is the distance from your elbow to your fingertip. Noah had it with him. 2 of them. I mean, why did God need to establish it? God said, Noah, build it 600 or 300 cubits. Well, it's obvious what the cubit was to Noah. There's no need to tell us. I mean, what else could you compare it with? We today use the foot or the yard, which originally were measurements from the fingertip to the nose or the length of a person's foot. Most of our English measurements come from body measurements initially, the inch, the width of the thumb, I believe it was, or the span. So I see no problem at all with the cubit being, Noah knew what it was. He was carrying it around. Okay?
I'm going to surprise you, Dr. Holbein, and say I basically agree with what you say. I believe it was originally decided that a foot was the length of a certain king's foot.
Right.
And I don't remember exactly who that was, but of course his foot would have been longer than someone else's or shorter than someone else's. And so from here to here would vary from person to person. But scholars agree that it was about 18 inches. And about the lava bed, I don't believe there is a forest growing on that volcanic island now, is there, Dr. Holbein? And we're talking about the volcanic soil decaying to the extent that a forest could take root and grow above the one that was below that layer of volcanic overflow.
Then the last question to Mr. Till. Can you prove scientifically that there was enough variation in the barometric pressure in the flood days to produce strong winds in order to damage the ark?
No, I can't prove that, but I'm simply taking their scenario. When I say their scenario, I mean the scenario of the creation scientists. And I just wish some of you people who are amening practically everything that Dr. Holbein is saying would take the time to study some of that literature. They described volcanic eruptions everywhere, winds and hurricanes of violent force. That is their scenario. And I'm simply suggesting to you that if they're going to use this to explain how perhaps a layer of rock could be folded like he showed to us, instead of accepting the fact that maybe this was caused by the pressure of continental drift, if he's going to accept that as an explanation for geological phenomena that we see today, then he's going to have to explain to us how the ark could have withstood forces unlike anything that any ship ever experienced before. And if he's going to be scientific about it, he's going to have to do more than say, well, they were smarter back then than we are now.
Read the question one more time, if you would, please.
Yes, sir. The question was, can you prove scientifically that there was enough variation in the barometric pressure in the flood days to produce strong winds to damage the ark?
Right. Here you are with a case of proving a negative. Cannot be done. Can you prove it didn't happen that way? Mr. Till has not proven that the scriptural account is impossible scientifically, I don't believe. I think I gave a scenario that it could have happened. I think with the, as far as the size of the ark, that seems to be his primary objection, that you cannot build a boat. We have boats an awful lot bigger than 400 feet today made out of steel. If Noah had the technology and the wisdom that we would attribute to a person 600 years old with the ability to talk to his great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather and everybody in between, I think they probably had unbelievable technology that we're not aware of. Some unusual features are found. And so a hammer was found with dinosaur bones and footprints in Glen Rose, Texas, a stainless steel type hammer that can only be built under double atmospheric pressure. So I think they had a lot of technology, and they, we tend to get in the evolutionary mindset of we're advanced, they're dumb. The atheists have the very same mindset. Atheism is good, we are smart, fundamental Bible believers are dumb. That is really what they believe, and it's been portrayed numerous times here tonight. That's the attitude, and I think that needs to be rethought, Mr. Till. Everybody may not be quite as dumb as you give us credit for. Thank you.
Gentlemen, we didn't discuss this. Would you like 2 minutes to have closing remarks? It's up to you, gentlemen. You have some closing remarks? Like 2 minutes?
Sure, we left a lot of things hanging. That'd be good.
Left a lot of things hanging? Okay. I don't want to hang anyone tonight. So we're going to begin with Dr. Hovind, because the last question was directed here to Mr. Till. So Dr. Hovind, if you'd like to take, let's go 2 minutes, if we could. 2 minutes.
Okay, great. I've got several pages of things we've really left hanging. He mentioned that water weighs 8 pounds per gallon. What held it up there? I'd like to inform him that clouds are pure water. They obviously are up there. I don't know. I know that real cold ice at 300 or 400 below zero, ice becomes magnetic. You can pick it up with a magnet. And the Earth's magnetic field is declining rapidly. NASA says the half-life of our magnetic field is now about 830 years. We're losing our magnetic strength pretty rapidly. So in Noah's day, the magnetic field may have been 20 to 30 times stronger than it is today. One plausible scenario is that it was an ice barrier, which would be water, like it mentions, only in the frozen form, suspended by the magnetic field. It certainly could have been a canopy, a vapor barrier. Venus and Jupiter are covered with vapor barriers, canopies, and it's extremely hot on the surface of Venus for that reason. Many of the planets have these layers to the atmosphere. The Earth certainly could have had a canopy of water. The Bible says it did. He mentioned the rotten luck syndrome. Why not go dig up the ark and show it to us? Talk about the rotten luck syndrome. Let's find some missing links. Show me how life evolved. Make some in the laboratory for me today. They can't seem to do it today. They say, well, it had a pre-flood environment, you know, different. The early environment was methane gas, they refer to, and high CO2 levels and no oxygen and all that. Well, that was Miller's experiments, and all he did was produce a few amino acids, and then he had to trap them carefully so they didn't get destroyed going back through again. Miller did not create life in the laboratory, made a few amino acids is all. But they have the same rotten luck syndrome. They can't prove evolution at any turn. They can't find any of the missing links between any of the major kinds of animals. What they do is point to little variations or extinct lines, and as if extinction somehow proves the theory. Well, to me, that would be more evidence for creation. They'll say man lost his tail because we didn't need it. Didn't need it. Have you ever thought how handy it would be to have a tail? Come to the door with 2 sacks of groceries and try to open the door with your tail to get in it. All the examples they give are examples of losses, not gains. This missing link, rotten luck syndrome is on their back, not mine.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hovind. Mr. Till.
Well, I'm not